Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to make a TikTok scraper bot that's going to let you do competitor research, track your own accounts, and get any kind of data from TikTok that you can use for your own brand to track trends, to track actual videos that people are creating that are working well, and to organize all that data in one place and do better market research for your own. So this agent right here, I built it in N8n. This is going to be our main tool for building these kind of AI agents. And what this agent does is initially it gets TikTok data using an API called Appify. It's going to then request that profile data using an HTTPS node that we built here. It's then going to summarize that data. It's going to get that data. It's going to set these fields in a way that's actually usable for us. It's then going to summarize it and extract the data that we want. And then it's going to pull in some other data from another API called Scrape Creators, organize all of that into a Google Sheet. And that Google Sheet's going to look like this, where every single month it's going to tell us the date that it ran. It's going to give us the total number of views for the entire channel. It's going to give us the average views per video. It's going to tell us how many videos are created. It's going to then pull in from another API our demographic data and tell us the percentage that's coming from the USA. So this is really useful for if you're running an e-commerce brand, if you're doing marketing for an app, if you're selling info products, really if you're doing anything online and you want to get data from TikTok, whether that's your own account or whether that's somebody else's account, you don't actually need access to the TikTok account to be able to get data on their profile. And this is pretty basic kind of data scraping that I'm doing here. It's not really that advanced, but as you'll see, you have access to a ton of data and you can manipulate it however you want. You can build pretty advanced dashboards with this. So I'm going to show you the basics of how to actually pull in that data, how to play with that data, and then you can decide how you actually want to manipulate it. So for my purposes, I built this to run for my app. So I have a dog care app that I run. It's called PupScan. It's right here. So I have this TikTok account that I am, I'm paying somebody else to run for me. And I want to be able to track, which videos are working well, which videos have kind of, which are my outlier videos, essentially. And I want to be able to track every single month, how many videos is this person posting, what are the averages look like, what do the views look like, all that kind of stuff. And I also pay people based on the number of views. So this is what I use to calculate how much am I supposed to pay out. So let's get started here to the TikTok agent. And here in N8n, we have our workflow. So the workflow, what it's going to do is it's going to schedule once a month to run. And the output is going to be this data in my Google Sheet. So I'm just going to be able to get this every single month. And I can set this every single day if I want. I can get daily data. I can get weekly data. I can get hourly data. I don't really need this that often. Just to get more advanced data, maybe I can do it like once every week, right? So I do that. Although I'm not going to actually run that because it's going to make me wait a week. But this is our first node in any N8n workflow. It's always going to be our scheduled trigger. And you don't have to have a schedule based on, a certain time. You can manually trigger it. You can do it based on a webhook, which is like a piece of data from somewhere else on the internet, and then that triggers your node to run. So if you want to take in a form, or if you want to see, like, you got an email or something like that, you can do that. But for this agent, we're just going to do it once every week. Then we get into the actual meat of the workflow. So this is our main node that we're going to be using here. It's the HTTPS node. So this is the most powerful, most useful, and most important node in all of N8n. And what this node lets us do is it lets us pull in data from anywhere on the internet using the HTTPS request format. So I just went ahead and labeled this request profile data. And for this, we're going to use the Appify API. So if you go to Appify, and I'll put this link down in the comment or down in the description, so you can get all this. But if you go to Appify, you'll see they have an Appify store where you can search whatever scrapers that you want. Appify is just a kind of marketplace, I guess, for different kinds of scrapers. So the one I found that was useful is Clockworks TikTok scraper. Clockworks seems like it's a pretty reliable one. They have a ton of different scrapers that have pretty good reviews, and all of these TikTok scrapers let you get different kind of data from TikTok. If you want more detailed data on the actual profile, or like the music that they're using, or you want to actually download the videos, stuff like that, they have scrapers for all of those, and you pay based on your usage. So if you run it once, you'll see, so per thousand calls, or like per thousand rows, basically costs $3.70. And then if you want to add more data on top, it costs this much per thousand. That's how this works, and this is the main API that we're going to use. And you can go in here and you can manually play around with it. You can get all the information here. You can manually play around with it. So if you want to go into TikTok profiles data here, you can see I put in the account that I want to scrape, which is this TikTok account that is running for my brand. So I would just copy this, put it into here, Hair of the Hound 3. And then there are a ton of other fields they have here. You can sort it by latest, by popular, by oldest. You can exclude the pin post. You can put in a date filter, popularity filter. You can get data for just one URL if you want, or multiple URLs. There's a bunch of different stuff you can do. You can sort by search, and then you can download the videos if you want as well. But we don't really need any of that stuff. I just want the general data from the profile, because it will give us quite a bit of data as well. So and then we can cut it by however many videos we want to get. So if we want just the last 10 videos, last 100 videos, we can do that. We can do 10, then we can do sort by latest, so that would be, or we can do sort by popular. We can get the 10 most popular videos. So this is how you run the API. Right, so this is what we have here, but we can't actually do that in N8n, right? In N8n, the way we do it is we need to actually call the API using the API parameters here. So luckily, we have really good documentation here. So what we would do is we go to API endpoints here in the TikTok scraper, and here the API endpoints will tell us exactly what we want to get. Here, first, what you need to do to actually run the actor, you need to post to the API. You need to say, like, look, these are the parameters that I'm going to post in here, and this is what I'm going to expect back from you, and like, this is how I want to call it, this is what I want back from you. Right, so we need to first post that. So we just can very simply copy this, and then we can take that into the URL here, and we just paste that in the URL here. And now this, at the end, will have my API key, so I won't expose that, but it will have, it'll be the exact URL that I can just post in there. And Appify makes it pretty easy for you, because they actually put in the API for you there. So it actually is pretty nice. And then we can just go back in here, and we need to send in a body, right? And the body will say, look, this is what we actually want from the API post, or like, the API request that we're making. And that is the same as the stuff that we put in manually right here. We put in Hair of the Hound. We have all these kind of filters. And that's going to be the same right here in JSON, right? So we can just copy this JSON here, and we can put it into here. All right, this is going to be the exact same. We just copy and paste it into here. And this is how I had done it last time. So I had sorted it by latest. I had 100 videos. This time you can see when I manually changed the stuff to give me 10 videos, and then to sort it by the most popular. You can see this also reflects in the JSON. So sorted by popular, 10 videos, right? So um, all we need to do is copy that JSON into here, and it's going to get that for us. Now, if you download the JSON template that I'm putting into the description, this will all be done for you. You don't actually need to do any of this stuff. You can just swap out the name in the profiles here, and instead of Hair of the Hound, you'll put whichever one you want. You can do as many videos as you want. It'll just charge you based on how many results you get. So it's pay per result. So for 100, it would cost me like 37 cents or whatever. I don't even think it scraped 100. It's scraped like 70 because that's all I have. So it charged me like 26 cents or something like that. So yeah, that's our first node. Once we execute that step, we will then get this data, which is not the data that we want. And this data just tells us information about the actual API call. It'll say like, right here, flat fee for starting an actor run, charges me, this much, cost per result item returned, this much, so on and so forth, right? So this is not the data that we want. What we need to do then is we need to actually get that data, right? So we go to API points, endpoints again. So here it'll explain to you what each API call means. So here we run the actor. That's what we just did. Then we need to actually get the actor, right? So to get the actor, this will just return the settings of this actor. We don't want that, right? This returns a list of versions of this actor. We don't want that either. Get list of actor webhooks. No, we don't want that either. Update settings, update versions of this actor. Nope. Get list of builds. Nope. Build actor. Nope. Get list of runs. Okay, we're getting closer. Okay, last run. This is what we want, right? So get last run and get last run dataset items. So here again, returns the last run of this actor. This will again, it'll just give me this information from the run, which is like the data, the ID, the user ID, the date, all that kind of stuff. That's pretty much useless for me. What I want is the get last run dataset items. This will give me the default dataset of this last run, which is the data that's actually going to be in here that is, it's actually useful for me. So we can see my previous runs. Okay, I had one that failed, but if we look here, we can see that we had all this data that actually came in, right? So this is the data that I actually want, and this is the data that I will get when I put in this URL. So let's go back here. Let's go back to our HTTP request, and here, now we go to method get, right? Let's go to the API endpoints, scroll all the way down, and we will get last run dataset item. So we can just copy that, boom. And if you hit this copy button, it'll get your API key as well. You can just copy that and then paste that right in here. You don't need to send a body for this because it has the actual request, and we don't need to put in an ID for the request because it's just going to get our last one, right? So now we execute this step and we get all of this raw data the same as what should be in here. All right, scraped one of one profiles. You'll see Hair of the Hound, the text, my dog was arrested. And if you go here, my dog was arrested. Okay. So you see the data matches, and now we have all of this raw data. Okay. And the reason there's this wait node here, I didn't really explain this, but there's a wait node here. And the reason for that is we want to wait 3 minutes because we're going to run this automatically. And if you look at these runs, duration 45 seconds, duration 1 minute 28 seconds. So as we add more videos, as this stuff keeps going, we will see that the length that this run goes for, it is gonna keep getting longer and longer, right? So that's why we need to have a 3-minute wait node, because if we try to request the data before this is done, it's not going to work, right? So then we have all this data, right? We have all this data. We get, we see the output right here. We have these 70 items that have a ton of metadata that we'll see, it kind of just goes for days, right? Because some of them are slideshows. We have slideshow links that we can download. So there's a lot of data in here. So we need to then clean up the data. We need to actually put it in a format that's usable and it's going to actually, serve some purpose for us. So let's now then add a next node where we set the fields and we edit them and we take the data that we want and we organize it, right? So fields to set, manual mapping, what we're going to do from this HTTP request is just take the stuff that we want, right? So this text here, this is unidentified, but this is the caption. So we just drag in the text, we put it into here, and we label it caption, right? Here we see now we want to get the views, we want to get right here. So the video meta, that we don't really need the video meta, but what we want here is the dig count, share count, play count, collect count, comment count, right? So we can save all of this stuff, label it however we would like, and then we execute the step and we set those fields. So now I'm going to have organized data that has caption, views, URL, date, shares, comments, collects, and digs, right? And that all that data is just right here. And again, you can go in and you can drag all this stuff if you'd like. We can also put in the hashtags, one by one. Or what we can do is we can just save those. We don't really need the hashtags right now. We could also just drag them as one field if we wanted to. But we don't really need the hashtags right now. We can just get this raw data. But this is what I was saying earlier is that, you can play around with all of this data that's coming in from the profile however you would like. But I'm going to just show you how to actually get the raw data, and then you can decide how you want to use it for your own analysis. So I just want those basic fields, and then I want to summarize those fields a little bit, right? So here we have all of the views for every single video, and I just want to summarize them, right? So you go in here, you can get the count, you can get the max mins, but I just want to get the sum. So it'll sum up all those views. I want to get the count. So how many videos are there in total? So I'm going to get the count, and I'll do it by URL. You could use any of these fields. It doesn't matter, but I'll just do it by URL because I know each URL is unique. I also want to get the average. How many views are we getting on average? And this will be a little bit skewed because, there might be one video that gets 10 million views or something like that. And that, just pushes the average up. So a median would probably be a little better here, but I wasn't able to find one. We can calculate it ourselves, but it is not that serious. So we'll leave it as it is right now. And then, so I think that's it. That's all we need right now. Let's execute that step. And here we go. We have our sum views, count URL, average views. I don't know what this count was, but let's see. And then here we have our HTTP request right here where we are getting one more piece of data. So we have a total number of views for the month. We have a total number of videos for the month. We have our average views for every video for the month. And then if we remember what this was, we can add it back. But let's see, is there anything that's super relevant here? I guess we could do the count, total number of shares, if that's really, if that's interesting to us. So let's just make that the number of shares. Oh, no, not the count, the sum, the total number of shares across all of them, right? So, okay. This is how many times our videos have been shared, 37,000 times. Okay, so now we have that data all kind of summarized, all aggregated, and then we're going to get one more piece of data here. So what I want is a breakdown of my demographic audience. So right in here, I have my USA audience percentage. I want to know of all these views, how many of those views came from the US, because especially for app marketing, you want to know that you're actually targeting the right audience. Most 90+% of sales for apps come from the US, at least for me, for the data I've seen. So that's my focus, right? So for this, we're going to use a website called Scrape Creators. So Scrape Creators, you go here, scrapecreators.com, app.scrapecreators.com, and you get a bunch of free credits. So you can try to play around with this however you'd like. You go to the playground, it exposes your API key immediately, so I'm not going to show all that stuff. But if you go to TikTok, okay, whatever, I'll show it for like 10 seconds. If you go to TikTok, you go to the endpoint here. The endpoint is The endpoint is audience demographics, whatever. My API key is exposed for a bit. And then you go in here back to your URL. They have the curl like URL right there. All you need to do in this one is add your authentication. So here you do need authentication, generic credential type. You'll do header auth. You'll do create new credential. Here it'll be x-api-key, and you'll go into the value and you'll go in Scrape Creators and paste your actual API key. I've already done it, so I don't need this. But this is how it'll work. And then in the user, you'll put in your own handle here. So these are the only things you need to change. If you download the JSON, then you'll be able to use this. We'll execute this step, and what it will give us is, again, a bunch of raw data that is, there's a ton of data here that we can use. But all I care about is this number, which is the percentage in the US. All right, so here we go. And then I'm not going to set this field because the last step I want to do is just aggregate everything and put this into my Google Sheet. So I'm going to then add a Google Sheet node, connect this with my Google Sheet auth. This is a super simple auth. You just create a new credential and you just connect with Google. Again, I've already done this, so I don't need to do it again. And here we're going to append row to this document that I've already got linked here, sheet 1, and we're going to map these manually. I've got my date, total views, average views, total videos, and USA audience. And these will map really cleanly because I already got them in my summarize field. So most of these are coming from my summarize node. So my sum views will go into my total views, my average views will go into my average views, my total videos will be count URL. USA audience will come from my recent HTTP request, which I'll just drag in from right here, right? And then I've got all the data that I need. I execute this step. Let's see, this is empty right now. It should populate very shortly. Boom, there we are. Populates October 1st, 12:30 p.m. Total views, average views per video, total videos, and US audience. Boom. So this is now taken data from 2 different APIs, from Appify, from Scrape Creators. It's pulling data from a TikTok account that I didn't even need to log into. I can do this on any TikTok account that I want. I can do it on multiple TikTok accounts. And it's going to take all that data and it's going to summarize all that data for me. So I can now look at outlier videos. I can look at what's performing best for conversion. I can look at engagement rates. I can calculate all this data from the profile data that I've just scraped. And I've got it aggregated right here at a very high level. And I can manipulate it however I want within my node and really just parse out the data however is most useful for me. So I hope this was useful for you. This is how to create a TikTok agent to get any kind of TikTok data from Appify and Scrape Creators, wire it all up in N8n, and get your agent up and running. So thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.